Good evening, Bethel Local School parents, students, and staff. This is the special meeting for the board, but the planned community forum for our community. It is Monday, April 20th. It's about 7:03 p.m. Brennan, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. King?
Yes, here.
Oh, Ms. Reese?
Julie was showing on.
I think she's muted.
Now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I had to do *6 twice. So it must have thought for some reason it got remuted, but it wasn't. Go figure. Sorry. Here.
Ms. Sebastian?
Here.
Mr. Elam?
Here.
Ms. Mansfield?
Here.
Give me 1 second. It's not showing up on YouTube. We can't do it this way. Oh, okay, it won't come up on here.
Brennan, it is streaming live now.
All right, we can go. It's not coming up on my Chromebook, so go ahead.
Yeah, I'm following it on my phone.
All righty.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started again. Welcome, community, staff, and students. Thank you for joining us tonight for our community forum that we're trying to do electronically. So please bear with us. It is April 20th. It's 7:06 p.m. Brennan, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. King?
Here.
Ms. Reese?
Present.
Ms. Sebastian?
Here.
Mr. Elam?
Here.
Ms. Mansfield?
I'm here.
We're good to go.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome all the folks that are tuning in through the various social media channels that we're broadcasting this on. Thank you for being here this evening. My name is Justin Firk, Superintendent of Schools. This evening we have Levin Porter here again that will be continuing our discussions on our development of our master facility project. Obviously, the second meeting we had to cancel due to the COVID-19 pandemic, excuse me. And then what we decided to do was kind of combine the information within the second and the third meeting. And we'll also have a survey that will be attached. So this presentation, the link will be made live on our website. We'll also be able to watch it on the YouTube channel, and then also have a survey that will go with it to continue to gather community feedback, a very important feedback that will help drive the decisions in the district. So with that being said, I'd like to turn it over this evening to Mr. Duff, who will be walking us through the presentation. So Mike, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much. Before we get started, I just want to say I hope everybody's safe and well, and we live in interesting times. So with that, I'd like to get into our agenda tonight. So we have quite a bit to cover tonight. What I'd like to start with is a recap from our first forum. So how did we get here? What are the two programs that we're looking at, the ELP program and the CFAP by the state? Look at our master plan timeline, and then review the results, the survey results from the first forum. The second half of our forum tonight, we'll talk about the master plan options. We'll discuss locally funded initiatives and then open it up for Q&A and then talk about next steps. So how did we get here? Discussions really began with OFCC, that's the Ohio Facility Construction Commission, or the state agency. They began in summer of 2019. And OFCC informed the district that they would be eligible for funding in about 6 to 7 years. And because of the growth, obviously, the local schools needed to do something before that. So OFCC informed the district of an expedited program called the ELP program, which stands for Expedited Local Partnership Program, to allow the district to add needed space, make modifications, and receive credit for a future project. So the ELP agreement was reviewed in July of 2019 when the board passed a board resolution to engage in that program. OFCC then began their facility assessments and then the enrollment projections, which were completed in December of 2019. And then the district hired 11 corporate architects to assist with their master planning efforts. So the two programs that we're looking at, one is called CFAP, which stands for Classroom Facilities Assistance Program. This is the normal program that OFCC offers for districts based off of their eligibility ranking. So there are 612 districts in the state, and they basically are in line for funding. And that eligibility ranking is based off of the relative wealth of each district. So district number 1 is the poorest district, and the district number 612 is the richest district. And then the lower the number of your eligibility ranking, the sooner you are eligible for state funding. So the Expedited Local Partnership, as I explained, is a program that allows districts that their eligibility ranking is not up yet to engage in projects that they need to do before their number is up, before the state funds are available. So looking at our master plan timeline, February through May, right now, is when we do our community dialogues and have our forums. So tonight's the 20th, that's forum number 2. And then our next forum for the next phase will be on May 18th. April of this month, right now, the master plan options were submitted to OFCC for review. We received those options back from the state with costs applied to them. And one thing to note is that the costs applied to those master plans were 2019 numbers. We're still waiting for the 2020 update. But moving forward, in May, if we get an approved master plan from the community, the board would pass a resolution at the May board meeting approving that master plan to move forward. And then in July of 2020, the state commission would approve the master plan and we can go forward. Now I have tentative in our master plan timeline against this option because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have not received final confirmation from the state that July commission meeting will be held. I spoke with Valerie Montoya of OFCC, who's our project manager, and she was about 60–70% sure that there will be a July commission meeting, but she could not commit. So we're just waiting for her to confirm that date. The goal of our master plan for the first phase is the fall of 2023. So whatever project we engage in, we're trying to meet that fall of 2023 academic year. And then from the state, the funding could possibly be available in 2027, 2028. And of course, with the COVID-19 situation, that date is probably flexible. But the master plan overall complete date is in the 2030, 2031 school year. Okay, so let's review the results of the forum from Forum 1. We had 290 people responded to the survey. That's from the forum and from the online survey. So question 1, what grade configuration for the overall district do you prefer? 59%, and this was the strongest response, preferred the K5, 6-8, and 9-12 grade configuration. So this is the more traditional grade configuration and matches what you currently have. Okay. Question number 2, should the district operate on one site or multiple sites? Pretty strong response here that everybody wanted, not everybody, but the strongest response was 66% for one site. Question number 3, regarding the number of buildings, most of the respondents preferred multiple buildings, 64%. And then question number 4 had to do with the minimum size of a school. So OFCC does not co-fund or provide funding for schools for fewer than 350 students. And the question was really to gauge community support for a possible school that would serve less than 350 students, for instance, like a K1 early learning center. And the overall response really was 64% said no. We really want to leverage the state dollars to the greatest extent possible. Question number 5, how many stories should any new school facility be? 40% suggested two stories. 1 story at 28% and 32% had no opinion. So not a very strong response here. The thing that we discussed at the first forum was that it's really a wash whether we go with 1 story versus 2. The second part of our discussion really had to do with the existing buildings. And one policy of OFCC to keep in mind is the 2/3 policy. And this states that when the cost of renovating a facility exceeds 2/3 of the cost of replacing that facility, OFCC recommends that a new facility be constructed. This doesn't mean that OFCC would require you to renovate a facility that does not meet that, but it is a very strong suggestion, and they would require a waiver if you were to renovate a building that does not, that is over the 2/3 rule or policy. So looking at the existing buildings, and this is from the OFCC assessment, the 1918 through the 1968 additions exceeded the 2/3 rule. So for the additions, it was about $17 million in renovation costs versus $19 million in replacement costs. So that's 88%, which exceeds the 2/3 rule. So under this scenario, OFCC recommends the demolition of the 1918 through 1968 buildings. So looking at how people rate the existing facilities, the middle school rated at good to fair, which was about 55%. And actually there's a question right before that, I think, which is the, yeah. So the elementary school rated poor to very poor. The overall response was fair at 28%, but overall about 47% rated the facility poor or very poor. So going on to the middle school, we've got about 55% saying good to fair. And then the high school, no surprise here since it's a much newer building, was 74% either in the good or excellent category. So question 2 regarding the auditorium is, how important is it to keep the existing 1918 building that includes the auditorium? And 52% of folks decided that it was either less important or not important at all to keep that building. Related to the elementary and middle school portions of the building, again, about 60% of respondents said that it was less important or not important at all to keep those portions of the building that exceeded that 2/3 ratio. The 1999 gym addition, that did not exceed the 2/3 rule. That was about 50% of ratio. And per OFCC, they recommended renovating that existing gym. And 72% of the respondents agreed with that position, that this gym should be kept and renovated. Okay, so here we go into master plan, or excuse me, Forum 2 to discuss our master plan options and our locally funded initiatives. So there's a lot of information here, so I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. One policy to keep in mind when looking at the master plan options, OFCC chooses a baseline master plan option. And what that means is they look at all of the different master plan options and they choose the one that is the least expensive. The theory being that it's the least expensive option for any new facilities that is the most efficient use of space, the most efficient use of taxpayer dollars. So OFCC determines what a baseline master plan is, co-funded master plan is. Then any master plan that is more expensive than that, any other master plan options more expensive than that baseline would require an additional contribution from the district to implement those master plans. So let's look at the options that we have in front of us. Okay, so master plan option A is 2 buildings. This is a new K-5 elementary school. This is new construction. And then a separate 6 through 12 middle and high school, which would be a renovation and an addition to the existing high school. And per OFCC, this is the baseline master plan with a cost of $62.6 million. Option B is 3 buildings. So option B is a new K-5 elementary school, which is new construction, a new 6 through 8 middle school, new construction, and then a renovation and addition of the existing high school. So the cost for this option, which is master plan B, is $66.4 million. So that's over our baseline master plan option A of $62.6 million. So in this scenario, if this option is chosen, the district would need to contribute an additional $3.8 million in order to implement this master plan. Master plan option C is again 3 buildings. We have a new K-5 elementary school, which is new construction. We have the conversion in addition to the existing high school. So that would be converted into the new middle school. And then we have new construction for a new high school. So again, that's a new K-5 elementary school, a new 9 through 12 high school, and then a conversion of the existing high school into the middle school, which would require renovation and addition. So this master plan cost is $67.8 million. It's over the baseline master plan cost, option A, of $62.6 million. So by OFCC policy, they would require that the district contributes an additional $5.2 million in order to implement this master plan. So in review, question number 2 on our online survey, question number 1 is going to be about more demographics and personal information. Question number 2 begins, what master plan option do you prefer? So to review, we have option A, which is a new K-5. We have option A, which is a new K-5 elementary school. We have a combined 6th through 12th middle school and high school, which is basically a renovation and addition to the existing building. Then we have option B, which is a new K-5 elementary school, a new 6th through 8th middle school, and then a renovation and addition of the existing high school. Option B would require an additional $3.8 million to implement the master plan. Then option C, which is a new K-5 elementary school, a new 9 through 12 high school, and then renovation and conversion of the existing high school into the new middle school. And this master plan option would require an additional $5.2 million by OFCC policy. So those are the options that we're asking you to review. So question 3 relates to the first project, which is the ELP project. And this question goes hand in hand with question 2. But the question is, the master plan will be implemented in 2 phases. The first phase will add additional classroom space with an anticipated completion of July of 2023. And the new school should really accommodate about 744 students to avoid additional classroom trailers. So the 744 comes from the difference between the enrollment projection of 2,330 and then the building capacity of 1,586. Also to note is that the available budget without a bond issue is $28,500,000. So of the options below, which do you prefer for the first project? And we ask this question because it's certainly possible that you could go for Master Plan C, which is a new high school and a new elementary school, and decide, hey, we really want to do the new high school as our first project. So this question really drives at, what do you want to do first? So let's look at each one of these answers in a little bit more detail. Before we do that, the 2 things to keep in mind is that our available budget is $28.5 million. So this is the funding available for the project without going to the community for additional funds or for a levy. And then the second thing to consider is that the building should accommodate around 744 students. And as I mentioned before, that's the difference between the enrollment projection of 2,330 students in 2030 and then the current enrollment capacity of the building. And we say that because if the new building accommodates 744 kids, that 744 plus the 1586 basically equals our enrollment projection at 2030, which means we have enough capacity to accommodate those students in 2030. So that's important to keep in mind.
We got a couple of questions, if you can see those.
I think we have some flexibility there. If we engage in an ELP project and decide which project to implement. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. The question is, will we be able to change the master plan before CFAP starts? And the answer is yes. Whatever the ELP project is at the start, if we decide, for instance, that we want to go for master plan option A, and let's say we built a new K-5 elementary school, and something happens along the way that changes the information. Let's say our enrollment, increases more than 1,000 over and above the projection. We can certainly go back to the state and say, hey, look, our situation is different. We need to do something else because this isn't going to work for us. And yes, there's flexibility in that master plan.
I just got a couple questions emailed to me. The first one was, are these the 3 master plans only for option?
Yes, that's correct.
Second one is, I think there may be some confusion on the total dollar amount. Why is it less than 4 million to build a new 6 through 8 building, but 62 million to build a K through 5? I think the 62 million is the baseline for 2 buildings, correct?
Yeah, the $62.6 million is the cost of the overall master plan. So that's basically to complete the entire master plan through 2030. So we're looking at overall dollars. That's how the state reviews master plans and determines what the baseline master plan is. That $62 million, the 66.4 and the $67.8 million, if I'm correct, those are each the overall values of the master plans that we're reviewing as determined by the state.
That's the only questions I have.
Okay. All right, so let's look at the ELP options. So in terms of a new K-5 elementary school, the cost of a new K-5 elementary school is going to be $23,700,000. And then that K-5 elementary school, per the enrollment projection, would accommodate 873 students. So if the K-5 is the first option, this meets our requirements of the number of students, and it also fits within the budget. Now, one thing to note is that the K-5 option is available for all 3 master plans. The next option for an ELP project is the new middle school. So a new middle school is going to cost $22.6 million. This is going to accommodate 618 students. So this fits the criteria of being within our initial budget of $28.5 million. It only accommodates 618 students. So additional swing space might be needed if this is the first ELP project. So that's one thing to keep in mind if this option is chosen. The other option is the new high school. So looking at the new high school cost, it's $35.5 million or $35.5 million. This accommodates 839 students. So it meets the criteria to help us meet the enrollment projection in 2030, but right now it's over the budget. So our available budget of $28.5 million, this would require an additional $5.2 million for this master plan option C. It also requires a bond issue of $7 million. So if you want to build a new high school, keep in mind that this would require a bond issue to go forward as your first project. Okay, so reviewing those options, we've got option A, which is the new K-5 elementary school, which costs $23,700,000. It accommodates 873 students, which meets both of our criteria. Option B, which is the new 6 through 8 middle school, costs a little less at $22.5 million. It accommodates 618 students, but that's as part of master plan B option, we would need an additional $3.8 million in additional funds from the district. And then option C, which is a new high school, will cost $35.5 million. That accommodates the right number of students. we would need an additional $5.2 million from the district to implement master plan option C. And then we would also need a bond issue if this is going to be our first project to build a new high school. So those are the review of the ELP project options. And we've got a question on our survey, which kind of asks you, hey, which of these options do you prefer? Okay, so we've talked about the master plan options, and I'm sure there are tons of questions about those. Please keep the questions coming in, and we'll try to address them as we get there. But let's talk about locally funded initiatives and what is co-funded and not co-funded. So OFCC basically co-funds anything related to the academic core mission of school districts. They co-fund new buildings with gymnasiums. They co-fund renovations with the scope defined by the OFCC assessments. They co-fund multi-purpose fields for physical education only, grass only, no turf, so no extracurricular. They will co-fund the parking and the access drives and everything associated with the circulation around the buildings. They co-fund the site utilities, water, sewer, natural gas, electric. Obviously, you have to have these in a new building. They will support, co-fund technology infrastructure. So that's basically all of the technology devices and things to get the computers working. And then they will co-fund furniture. OFCC will not co-fund stadiums or grandstands. They don't co-fund fixed seat auditoriums. They do not co-fund extracurricular athletic fields. They don't co-fund exterior restrooms or concession stands. They do not co-fund computers. So all of the equipment is required to be purchased by the district. But the devices that those computers plug into, that's part of the technology infrastructure, and those are co-funded, but computers are not. They also will not co-fund central office space. They will co-fund land purchases or upgrades to materials above and beyond what's in the OFCC standards. For instance, terrazzo flooring is one of those. So all of these options on this OFCC will not co-fund list are called locally funded initiatives, or just simply LFIs. Okay, we have a question.
Hey, Mike, got a question on YouTube. Could you explain why elementary and high school are so close in number of students they accommodate, even though they are 2 extra grade levels in the elementary?
Yeah, that's just simply a function of the enrollment projections. The projections indicated about 873 kids from K through 5 in 2030. And then I believe the number was 839 high school kids in 9 through 12. So those numbers came directly from OFCC, from the enrollment projections, and those are the numbers we have to work with.
I also got an email question. Are these numbers being used, including all the potential new annexations that is being considered on use Route 40 and across from carriage trails?
Future Think was the company that did the enrollment projections, and they look at all of the different factors in terms of growth, and they have a factor in their enrollment projections to accommodate that. And I can't speak exactly for Future Think, but I know that they did accommodate a certain amount of growth in the surrounding area. So did they include 1,000 new homes every year? No, but I think the going trend right now is about 100 to 120 homes a year, and that is certainly information that they accommodated in their enrollment projections. That's it. Okay. All right. So talking about what OFCC will not co-fund. So here are some of the LFI categories that we're looking at. We're looking at a possible auditorium. We're looking at possible classroom additions above and beyond what is in the enrollment projections. We're looking at additional elementary gym space, potentially. And we're looking at a number of athletic options and then possibly some material upgrades. So those are just some of the categories that we're looking at. Okay, so question 4 begins the LFI questions. So what option do you prefer for the auditorium? So there are a few things we could do. Number 1, we could build a new 500-seat auditorium. This would be about $4.7 million. We could, option B, renovate the existing auditorium. This option would cost about $1.7 million. We could, option C, demolish the existing building with the auditorium and then just not build an auditorium because we don't think it's important. Or if you're not sure, option D. So looking at this, this question, a new auditorium is basically going to include anything and everything that you think a new auditorium is going to. 500 seats, it will include new curtains, new theatrical equipment. It'll include lighting, new seating. It'll basically be a brand new auditorium. The renovated auditorium, in this case, it will include HVAC upgrades, restroom upgrades. We've included new finishes in the auditorium, new lighting, ADA access, because right now the building is not accessible. We've included a factor for chair lifts. There will be some roofing that needs to be done. And then the last thing is the exterior wall. So that building is surrounded by existing building. And once you peel those buildings away from that existing 1918 building, those walls have to be addressed. So there's a factor in our estimate to basically button up and clean up those exterior walls. And that estimated cost is about $1.7 million. So question number 5, would you be in favor of constructing an additional preschool classroom on a new building? The additional classroom would cost an estimated $550,000. So OFCC does not co-fund regular preschool classrooms. They do co-fund special ed preschool classrooms, but I don't believe the district has special ed preschool at the moment.
Currently, our students with disabilities attend various sites. Our traditional preschool is located in our district, but we would look at potentially adding a traditional preschool on site here at Bethel.
Right. So the traditional preschool right now is up at the Church of the Brethren, and this question is really, to gauge, is it important to bring that back to the main campus? And because it's an LFI, it would cost $550,000. And this basically is a factor that includes not just the classroom, but the additional area for the cafeteria, the additional restroom capacity that's needed, because you're adding, that number of students, you need additional support space. So that's why the cost of the classroom is $550,000.
We have a question on YouTube.
Yeah.
The question is, would option B in renovating the existing elementary add any additional seating to what currently exists? There's currently less than 300 seats in the existing auditorium.
The second option, which is the renovated auditorium, would keep the existing number of seats in that auditorium. We're not increasing the capacity. Okay. So looking at the classroom addition LFI, as I was saying earlier, a preschool classroom is about the same size as a kindergarten classroom, which is per the state standards is about 1,200 square feet. And that 1,200 square feet, we have to add more than that as a factor for the support spaces like the mechanical, the cafeteria, and the restroom within the room. So that's why the costs are $550,000 for a preschool classroom. Question 6. This question really is for potential additional to accommodate possible growth above and beyond the enrollment projections. So would you be in favor of constructing additional classrooms for each grade level on a new building? So for instance, for a K-5 elementary school, this would add 6 additional classrooms and would cost an estimated $2.8 million. It would be, you know, a new classroom is about $450,000. For an elementary school, the prices includes the new kindergarten classroom, which would be $550,000 because of its size. So this is basically to gauge, hey, you know, do you want to spend additional money to add additional classrooms? We have a question regarding the auditorium. And what about the option to keep the elementary auditorium as is? Yes, that is certainly an option. You know, you don't have to do anything to that auditorium if you don't want to.
I got another question. Do the new buildings or any building built include their own cafeteria?
Yes, the new buildings include their own cafeteria and their own kitchen and related support spaces. So they're basically, they function separately and on their own. Okay, and I was saying about additional classrooms. A standard classroom is 900 square feet. The kindergarten classrooms are 1,200 square feet. And again, the cost per classroom, a standard classroom, is $450,000 each because of the additional mechanical space, the additional restroom capacity, the additional cafeteria, you know, library space, all of the different spaces that you need to add to accommodate that number of kids that you're adding to the building. So that's just kind of further detail for additional classrooms. So question 7 regards elementary gymnasiums. Typically, a gymnasium is about 6,000 square feet. That will not accommodate a full-size basketball court. So this question is really geared for, hey, how important is it that the elementary gym accommodate a full-size basketball court? And this additional space would cost approximately $340,000. It's less than the classrooms because a gymnasium is basically a big open space, and it's a lot easier to add on to this space than it would be for a classroom. So how important is this space? So you know, a typical gym, 6,000 square feet, will not accommodate a full-size basketball court. And how important is it to you that gym accommodate that full-size basketball court for maybe, you know, flexibility in different sporting events or different presentations, or to have a larger venue for practices for either JV or even high school. So question number 8 regards the stadium. So of the following options concerning the stadium, which do you prefer? A, build a new stadium that includes new locker rooms, an all-weather track, new concessions, new lighting, new press box, new bleachers. This would cost approximately $3.5 to $3.7 million. So that's a brand new stadium. B is to renovate the existing stadium. This would include, you know, a new grass field, new locker rooms, all-weather track. The existing press box and the bleachers would remain. And this option would cost about $1.6 to $1.8 million. I include a new grass field in this option because there's a grade change from one side of that field, or one end of the field to the other, about 3 feet. And that does not comply with high school sports standards. So the idea is that we would bring fill in and provide a new field that would meet the high school athletic standards. But that option would be about $1.6 to $1.8 million. And then option C is to do nothing. You know, you just basically live with what you got. So a new stadium would include, new home and visitor bleachers. It would include home and visitor locker rooms. The bleachers, the home side, we would plan to switch to the west side so that the sun's not, burning your face off in that early evening. We would have a new press box. We would have new concessions and restrooms, a new 8-lane all-weather track. We'd have new track and field event areas, for the long jump, the pole vault, shot put. There'd be new fencing, a new scoreboard, and then new athletic equipment such as goal posts, and then of course new stadium lighting. So that's where the 3.5, that's what is included in the 3.5 to 3.7 million dollars.
I have a question. Could the district just have space available to build out as needed and not finish so that the district could grow but not spend the money right away? That was what was talked about during the high school edition.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, no matter what we do, our plan is any new construction is to plan a future addition that can be added on at a later date. So additional classrooms do not need to be constructed now. They could be constructed at a later date, and we will plan for that in the future. Okay, so for the renovated stadium, getting back to our stadium conversation, this would include new home and visitor locker rooms. We'd still do the new 8-lane all-weather track, the new regraded grass field, and then the existing concession stand and restrooms would remain, and then the existing bleachers and the press box would also remain. One of the issues that we have with the renovated stadium is that it's so close to the ball field behind that we don't have room to move the home side bleachers to the west side. So that's why we're proposing that those stay in place.
So we have another question in regards to the stadium. What would be the approximate cost of the new track as part of a new or renovated stadium?
The new track is about $400,000. That's the information we have currently about that option. Okay, so question number 9. Synthetic turf is not included in any of the stadium options that we've indicated, and this option would cost about $750,000 to $800,000. So it's really to gauge how important synthetic turf is to the community in any new stadium renovation.
A couple questions have been submitted. The first one, going back to the number of classrooms, how many classrooms per grade level are in the plan for elementary if we don't add additional under local funds?
Six classrooms?
I think it was 6 classrooms per grade level.
Yeah, the additional classrooms that we, right. The additional classrooms would be 6 additional classrooms for a K-5 is what we're proposing.
How many classrooms per grade level?
How many classrooms per grade level?
Oh, I'm sorry. How many classrooms per grade level? I'm sorry. It's about 6 classrooms per grade level, roughly.
And then I have another one.
Is the district going to financially secure enough to accommodate all additional staff going to be needed in additional cafeteria staff and custodial staff and new buildings? As we do our 5-year forecast, those are currently additional staff is projected each year. For cafeteria staff, mainly that is run through the food service fund, which is a separate fund. However, currently with the pandemic and everything, we're currently monitoring local and state revenues as there could be changes. Also to emphasize again, the only way for the school district to be able to do the ELP on its own without going to taxpayers for additional money is if we currently keep all the 4 levies that we have in place. But that is something that we are monitoring. as of right now, yes, we do have the additional funding. But as we get closer and closer, we'll dive in deeper for that.
Okay. All right, question 10 is about a new baseball field. So right now the baseball field is remote from the campus. A new baseball field will cost about $325,000 to $375,000. So how important is it to bring that baseball field back to the main campus? I'm sorry, yeah, we got another question.
So we have another question in regards to the stadium, and that is, can we just add track and field area to our existing stadium?
Yeah, the center track right now can be replaced with an all-weather track. I want to make sure that we've got enough room. I think the all-weather track's a little bit narrower than an 8-lane track. So, you know, we'd have to be sure that we could add that around that football field. Okay, question 11 is about the softball field. So how important is it to construct a new softball field on the main campus? And then a softball field is the same cost as a baseball field, about $325,000 to $375,000. Question 12 is about a soccer field. You know, right now, I think the soccer field is remote. It's played on the football field. So how important is it to have a new soccer field on the main campus? And the soccer field is going to cost approximately $60,000. Question 13 is about possible tennis courts. So how important is it to construct new tennis courts on the main campus? I mean, currently there's no tennis program, you know, at Bethel local schools, but as the district grows, maybe this becomes an option that wants to be explored. So a new tennis courts, I've got an estimate in here for 4 courts, would be about $390,000. So how important is it to bring tennis back to Bethel local schools? Question 14 is about a band practice field. The band practice field is going to cost about $35,000. There's a potential that this could be part of a co-funded project, and this $35,000 would be absorbed into the main co-funded project. But a band practice field is less than a soccer field because the grading is not as restrictive. You know, you want to basically crown a soccer field so that it drains correctly, and then a band practice field can basically sheet drain in one direction, which is the primary reason for the difference. So how important is it for a dedicated band practice field?
I got a couple questions off of Facebook on the turf. It says, I know local hospitals have chipped in significant money for turf field with a partnership agreement. And this is electronic, but it's a funding source to keep in mind. Also, do we have enough land to add a baseball field in all these additional buildings?
In regards to the turf project and the question in regards to corporate sponsorship, yes, there is some neighboring districts that have sponsored with different entities to help provide funding. I mean, we currently are in a contract with a local hospital to helps provide some additional funding for our athletic departments, but we're always looking for additional funds, so that could be an option as well. In regards to the additional land, just a friendly reminder that the district does own all of the land north of the current building site to Broad Road. And so that's roughly 168 acres. So that was purchased 20 plus years ago by previous board and superintendent and administration. It was a good move on their part. So the land is available for the school to expand north of the current site.
Okay, question 15 regards material upgrades above and beyond what's indicated in the state standards. So question 15 is about terrazzo flooring, and a new terrazzo flooring or an upgraded terrazzo flooring would be about $450,000. So how important is it to to bring upgraded flooring materials, which might reduce maintenance costs, into the project. Question 16 is about upgraded roofing. So we get this a lot, to upgrade roofs from a standard kind of lower slope roof to a metal roof. And this would be a sloped metal roof. And that upgrade for this particular project would be about $750,000. And then question 17 is basically, hey, what did we miss? Tell us what other locally funded initiatives we should be considering. We're definitely open to any and all suggestions, and are kind of excited at the prospect of looking at what you have in mind. Yeah, track and field is one of those options. And then the last question on our survey is going to be a ranking list. So we've listed all of the various LFIs that we've talked about tonight, and we're simply asking you to rank what those LFIs are in terms of importance to you. So our new tennis court's really important to you. Is a larger gym really important to you? Consider the list, consider the costs, and think about what you want to see in the project. Now, one thing to remember, we do have a budget. So we're not going to do everything on this list. We may not be able to do anything on this list. We don't know yet. So based off of which master plan options we choose and which ELP project we go forward with, that will help us determine what our budget for locally funded initiatives will be. But right now, we just need to understand, what's important to you related to locally funded initiatives. So with that, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for being patient with me and us. And we'd like to open it up to any further questions. Or are there any other comments?
This is Julie. I'll start. So I don't have a copy of the presentation in front of me, so I guess maybe you'll have to flip back and forth. Is that the plan? Can we go back to the second question about the options? So I just wanted to ask, what's the source of the options and why, we were presented financial options. We were presented significantly more things or more, more buildings even, and options within those buildings. So we don't see those here.
You're talking about the option A, B, or C?
Yes. Perfect slide. Excellent.
Yeah, these are the options that were determined based off of the forum results. So it had to do with the grade configuration and the number of buildings. So the planning concepts and planning information that we received from the community basically led us to these three options.
But I'm just asking, well, so the two buildings were not really something the community wanted, but we see a two building option on here.
Yeah, that's correct. And the reason for that two building option is that OFCC, they look at all of the available options and they determine what a least common denominator would be. So, we did not present an option to them that was a two building option. We basically presented, options B and option C. After they looked at the available options, looked at the enrollment projections, looked at the building and facility assessments, they basically determined that a new K-5 and then a combined 6 through 12 middle school, high school would be the least expensive master plan option. So OFCC basically determined that that was the baseline option because according to them, to OFCC and to the state, that is, with all the available information, the best use of taxpayer dollars and the most efficient way to accommodate the enrollment as indicated by the projections.
Okay, and then can you clarify for everybody, these are based on current, projected enrollment numbers by the OFCC.
Yes, that's correct.
And the dollars are today's dollars. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I missed that last part.
And the dollars are today's dollars. That's in dollars today.
Yeah, the dollars that we are presenting are 2019 dollars. So we're still waiting for the updated numbers from OFCC for 2020. So that's correct. These are basically 2019 dollars. And I spoke with Paul Brown of Resource International, who's been hired by OFCC to look at the numbers and to help determine what the updated master plan options would cost. And he said that because of the COVID-19 stuff, that the information is taking longer to put together than anticipated. So we were hoping to have numbers, updated numbers by now, but it's looking like it may not be for another couple of weeks. But we're in constant contact with OFCC and with Paul, and we'll update these numbers as soon as we get the information from OFCC.
Okay, and the options, they're also based on the projections, enrollment projections at the OFCC for the size of the buildings that
yes.
the cost includes.
Yeah, these are all based off of the enrollment projections given to us by OFCC.
Okay, and then one last question. If we determined that there was a different option that would suit our needs better, can we go forward with that to the OFCC and get an opinion or a ruling, or how does that work?
If there's another option that wants to be explored, then yeah, we could present that to OFCC and see how they would respond.
Okay, because I think there's additional options.
I got a couple questions emailed to me. To do a follow-up on one of the questions previously asked, they wanted some clarification about the one about if space available to build out is needed and not finished so that the district could grow and not spend the money right now. What that question was referring to was if they could build shells of rooms, not have them completed, to be complete in the future.
We've kind of explored this option before too. I mean, you could build out the shells, but you're still providing, electrical and HVAC to those options. Mark may have some more information.
When you shell out the space, you're still spending probably 2/3 the cost of the classroom or whatever space that you're shelling out. So the big hurdle usually is first cost dollars. You've got a budget, and so yeah, you could build out those classrooms, but if you don't have the money to do that now, then that's usually the stumbling block there. So it is possible, but you're spending basically 2/3 of the cost to build that room, so you're not saving a whole lot by not building it, or by building it at that time.
Another question was asked, how far out are the projections when we mentioned the 6 classrooms for elementary? That was 2029, 30s?
Yeah, the enrollment projection is for the 2030 class. So it's roughly 10 years out. That's what OFCC typically projects out.
And also, hey, this is Jacob. That I believe it was, to clarify, it's 6 classrooms per grade in elementary, elementary grade.
Yeah, that's correct.
There'll be a couple of grade levels that have probably 7 classrooms, because there's kind of a bubble that goes through the district at that time. But yeah, it'll be basically 6 classrooms. So it's a little bit more than what you have now for grade level.
So it depends on the grade level.
Right.
And we can only build the elementary classrooms based on the current OFCC projections. And if we wanted more, we'd have to agree to that locally funded initiative.
That's correct. Yeah, if you build anything over and above what the enrollment projections indicate, that would be a locally funded initiative. I mean, the risk is, let's say you build the new classrooms, the additional classrooms. If the enrollment projections are correct, then you're basically spending that locally, those locally funded initiative dollars. If the enrollment projections are wrong and there's more students coming in than the projection has, then there's the potential that those classrooms could be co-funded. But if you build the classrooms now, plan for them, you're taking a risk to build them out. The best thing really would be to plan new additions onto any new construction. Just basically make sure that there's space for those additions, and then deal with the enrollment as it comes.
And we could also look at as well if our community changes or an additional housing development comes online and space is available, it would also allow us to build another portion of an elementary in that housing development, possibly to offset some of the growth from adding on to just building a new facility.
Yeah,
If
yeah, that's
numbers
correct.
are correct, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And then this is Jacob, by the way. So one last question I kind of have is, depending on what the community says and drives us with these locally funded initiatives, that could change what options are really the best. So let me give you for an example. If the community significantly states that they want a new stadium for football, we know we're going to have to move that north from where it currently is. And that would make sense for us to build a new high school farther north to be in line with the athletic fields versus putting a middle school possibly over there if people were going for option B. Or it wouldn't be the correct option if we kept option A. So even though we may get low numbers for option C, based on the community input, could we find ourselves actually selecting option C just so the layout is more efficient? That was kind of a complex question. I apologize.
Yeah, what we want to do, Jacob, is when we get all the responses from the survey from this forum, we'll put together kind of, here's what we saw, here's what people voted for, what are the options, what is most important. And then we'll also be looking at the site between now and the next forum so that we can kind of say, here's where we think these certain amenities might go. And we'll still have an opportunity at that point in time to finalize all of the decisions that are made. Right now, we're looking for what is the preference from everybody. And then, we'll look at the dollars and see what's available and see what we can do now and what we'll need to wait until the CFAP program. And, again, the way with this project, with it being an ELP project, you do get that opportunity 6, 8 years from now to maybe even change your mind about some of these things. Obviously, key to us right now is what are we building now and what can we afford now?
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that perspective. I think one of our key ingredient to this whole mix is outside of this forum with our community input is our facilities committee with community members on it to help us guide us in that direction. So I know we said it in the past, but the community members can also reach out to our facility committee members to help provide guidance to them as well as we step through figuring this out. So thank you.
Got some more questions. Got some more questions
Well,
on
so can
YouTube.
I just follow up on what Jacob said? I kind of agree with the, you know, if a choice, like, so using his example, if people wanted a new stadium, that we would have to consider maybe where we were building things. I mean, that's the long-term plan that I've kind of been asking about. And even if people don't choose that option, I think we need to look at the land and try to figure out where things are going to be in 20 years so that we don't build whatever phase one is in an unfortunate location. So
Yeah.
I hope that what he said does get some consideration.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. You know, and what we're trying to do is to try to put all these pieces together. You know, what does the community want to do first? What master plan you know, does the community want to implement? And once we have those pieces of the puzzle, along with the LFIs, then we can start moving the pieces around on the site. Then we can start looking at site circulation. We can look at you know, traffic patterns, where you know, the high school wants to be versus the stadium versus the middle school, and so on. So you're absolutely right. We need to understand what the pieces of the puzzle are before we can start putting it together.
Okay.
We have a couple questions on YouTube. First one was, are we planning on serving our special needs children with classrooms on site?
Well, it depends on, you know, what grade level configuration you're talking about. If it would happen to be special education preschool, that would be a co-funded project. Also, if you wanted to look at adding additional classroom spaces to bring additional opportunities for kids back here to Bethel and maybe not have them educated up in Troy or at the Miami County ESC facilities in various locations, you could do that. That would obviously entail additional classroom spaces, and then that would be potentially a co-funded project as well.
Correct.
Yeah, and one of the things you're gonna have to take into consideration there is if you're going to bring additional classroom spaces back on campus for special needs population, you're also gonna have to hire additional staff. Currently, those students are being educated by ESC employees at other locations. So you're gonna have additional classroom space costs and additional staffing costs. And right now in a district, you know, staffing, benefits, and salary are approximately what percentage of our?
Salary and benefits are about 80%.
About 80% of our budget.
But Justin, don't we pay the ESC to do that anyhow? I mean, so the cost to bring them on staff.
You would have to. I mean, you would have to look. We pay different. You know, there's different salary. The ESC has different salary schedules than we do. So, like with all staff, we would have to analyze what they're getting paid currently versus what we're willing to pay them. We'd also have to look at insurance plans and those kind of things before we would make a determination whether we want to take that on or not. Like any other.
Right, I got you, but I was just trying to say it's not 100%.
I didn't indicate that. I said it'd be additional cost and staffing. That's what I indicated.
Gotcha. Okay.
And to add on to that, Mr. Perks, this is Jacob. I would also add that, you know, it's been a long-standing goal, I think, of the board is to try and have 100% of our students educated on our campus. And as soon as we can physically and financially do that, those are some of our goals that we're working for our community.
The next question was about the 6 classrooms grade per level for elementary. So that would mean class size would be 20 to 24 class. Is that what is the classroom size based on?
Yeah, the classroom size per the state guidelines is 25 students. So all of the numbers of classrooms that we've indicated, 6 to 7 per grade, are based on that number, 25.
Next question was, can you explain how we could keep the elementary auditorium if all three phases would include a new elementary building?
Yeah, it's certainly possible to keep the existing 1918 building. You know, the renovation of that building would just be a locally funded initiative, an LFI. So there's nothing that says that you have to demolish it simply because it exceeds the 2/3 rule by OFCC. OFCC will not make you demolish that building, and there's value in that building, you know. But if the decision is to renovate, that's perfectly an acceptable decision.
Yeah, I would just say that it will end up being a standalone building. So it will not be connected to the elementary, even though right now it's associated with the elementary school. It would just be a standalone building.
Next question was about if we have multiple buildings, how will we manage with the number of nurses on staff? I would guess whenever that happens, we'll make a plan. But obviously, if right now, since we're all one big building, it's beneficial with having one nurse for the whole building. But as we get more and more buildings, that will be an additional staff that will have to be looked at.
Brennan, I think
As would maintenance and custodial and secretaries and administration and nursing staff and special education staff. So you have to look at it all. You have to look at all staff members when you add additional buildings. So one custodial staff will no longer be able to do 2 buildings or 3 buildings. So those are all things that you take into consideration during that process.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to add on is right now this forum is focusing on the actual construction projects and locally funded initiative costs. I think before we would go to voters to look at this, we would have to lay out the full plan of projected increase in cost for staff members, benefits, and having multiple buildings requiring more of everything. So right now, all 3 buildings utilize one cafeteria. So we would look at the other cafeteria, their staff, and all those costs as well. And I think for our due diligence to our community is we have to lay the entire cost product out there so everyone knows what we're signing on for.
Mark, I had a question.
Yes.
And I'm sorry to have to go back to the auditorium, but somebody got in front of me. I wasn't aware that the auditorium could be a standalone building, which I think is a great thing. But would that also include the classrooms behind the auditorium, because those are only a few years old? I believe there are 4 of them back there.
Danny, this is Mike. That portion of the building, even though they're newer classrooms, they exceeded the 2/3 rule. So they would, by OFCC standards, they would recommend demolishing those classrooms. But, you know, even though they are newer, you could still keep some of those portions of the classroom. You would just have to identify a locally funded initiative to keep those classrooms.
Okay, thank you.
You mean to renovate them, Mike? The local funded initiative.
To keep or renovate, yes.
Okay, gotcha. And could they be used for classrooms then?
If you use them as classrooms, they would basically count against you in terms of the master plan options. So, you know, the only way to keep those spaces and not have it count against you in the OFCC master plan is to basically use them for other purposes other than academic core functions.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
If you keep them, then you do have to renovate them and put them to the standards. So you cannot just keep them and use them as classrooms, unless I guess maybe preschool. That would be the only option that you could use them as a classroom, because the preschool is not co-funded, so you could potentially use them as preschool classrooms. But if they were used for regular classrooms, then they have to be brought up to OFCC standards. So you have to spend all the money to do that. And then it does count against you on the square footage that you're allowed to do.
Okay, that was one of my thoughts also, that they could possibly be preschool classrooms, since they wouldn't be connected to their other building.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right.
Hey, Brendan, I'm going to hop in here and help you out with some of the questions from Ms. Cox, I think it is. Projection dates of completion is whatever we're doing first, we need to have done in the next 3 years. The overall project completion is 2030, 2031 for the complete master plan. And Ms. Gross, there should be, there will be in this is establishing cafeterias for each facility, elementary and either a middle school, high school cafeteria, or a middle school cafeteria and a high school cafeteria. Mike or Mark, you have to answer on the next one. It says, can we take the chairs out of the old auditorium and put them in a new auditorium since they are newer?
That's certainly a possibility. Yeah, that would offset some costs, but you still have, you know, the removal and the reinstallation. And you know, Mark, you know, chime in if you got any additional information about that. But you know, typically by the time you take those things out, you know, you want new chairs. But
Yeah, you may be 50% of the cost of the chair. You're not talking about a great deal of money, even though it does cost a lot of money to buy those. You could always sell those existing ones to kind of offset some of that cost too, as another option.
We had another question from our Zoom session. It reads, something to consider for an LFI for the stadium. Would there be a considerable savings in annual maintenance with turf over grass? Can this double as a football, softball, band field, or excuse me, football, softball, band field, soccer field? I would say that question is yes. We would plan on still utilizing that for all three. If you look at what you're paying for right now with a traditional grass surface, you're fertilizing, you're watering, you're striping, you're mowing. Today we actually core aerated and slice seeded it to get ready for the next season. Now, obviously, you're going to have to probably replace turf every 10 plus years or so, but you will have some upfront lack of or less maintenance that needs to be done to it once it's done. And Mike can probably add more that maybe I forgot.
no, that's absolutely right. You basically hit it.
Well, the key benefit is
Well, so
you use it all the time. So your cost benefit is you get to use that field all the time.
Yeah, and I've seen schools, you know, that have utilized their athletic surface for hitting ground balls for baseball, softball. They've been able to go out there and run sprints and those kind of things. So they've tried to make it like almost a multi-purpose type field. Obviously, you have to watch what kind of spikes you wear on it and stuff, but it could be used for a lot of different things.
I wouldn't recommend equestrian events though.
So can I just make one comment? This is Julie. Because somebody had brought the band field up to me, you know, months ago, asking about having a separate place, because typically, different season, you get it, baseball, you know, hitting ground balls and stuff. But during the same season, it's difficult to find practice time. If the football team's using it, the band can't be on it. So there might be some conflict there. It can probably be doubled, but there is going to be some conflict because they might be out there every day. So
Yeah.
just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's practical, but I've also worked in districts where sometimes the band would have practice before school in the mornings. And so obviously that facility is going to have lights, and that's an option too. So we'd have to get creative with scheduling like we do with our lack of gym space now and everything else. So we would just have to look at schedules and do what we can to obviously take into consideration all teams and make sure they get equal access.
And I would say also as well as we would want to keep any existing offsite fields like our offsite baseball and offsite soccer area that's currently utilized by other organizations, but to keep our current baseball field there for other youth programs to enhance the up and coming students into our high school, middle school programs.
Yeah, there's no reason saying that the current baseball facility couldn't be used for Pony League level or junior Acme games, or even you could put a snow fence up and turn it into a Little League diamond as well. There's a lot of different things you could do with it.
One other option for the band, depending on how much parking we have, sometimes districts will stripe lots so that it does have football field markings so that the band could practice on the asphalt as another opportunity.
Well, that's what we used to have, and it was superior to using grass.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Mr. Elam. When I was junior high school principal at Fort Loramie, our band practiced on our parking lot as well. So every couple of years when we would get it restriped or resurfaced, we made sure that we coordinated with the band instructor to put the necessary markings down so that it was lined exactly how they needed. And the kids really liked it because it was a good surface to practice on. But that was just what I heard from them.
That's correct. You just do it in different colors. So yes, that's correct. Mike, could you speak a little bit about the peaked roof, the metal roof, and the cost as opposed to the flat roof like we have everywhere else, and what the maintenance and so forth over time?
Yeah, I mean, a typical, we call them low slope membrane roof is going to have a 20-year warranty. And so that means that you could probably get 25 years or so out of a typical single ply membrane with good maintenance and regular inspections. But the upgrade to the metal slope roof, those roofs last somewhat longer. Depending on the type of roof, you could get 50 years out of the roof, so twice the lifespan. They do have less maintenance than the single ply membranes. You still have to inspect them periodically, but they do, you have gutters and downspouts and all that kind of stuff off of them. But it's a typical request from districts for an upgrade is a slope metal roof. I don't know if Mark has anything to add on that one.
No, I mean, you still have issues with potential hail damage and other things that, the roof can get dented and whatnot. But yeah, it is a better quality roof. It will last longer, but there's a premium to do that. So it's just a matter of how important is that. There's an aesthetic portion that goes along with it too.
It just seemed like over the last 30 years or so, we've had to replace roofs at what I would consider a very quick rate.
Yeah, well, I would say that the roofs that you have, you guys have done a yeoman's job with them, pretty good job. But they do get old. The membranes begin to fail. They degrade with UV, with the weather, hail, all those kind of things. And things just get old, and they just need to be replaced.
Okay.
Mike, this is a question for that maintenance fund. When we would pass a levy, I know we're required to have like a 0.5% mill maintenance fund. If we don't have the funds within the project, can we use that maintenance fund over time to either change a roof from flat to sloped? I know that's not the normal way, or same thing with flooring, to upgrade flooring at a later time.
No, the purpose of the $500,000 is to basically it's all for operation of the building and maintenance. It's not used as a capital improvement fund. It's only maintenance and operations.
Okay.
Question on
yes, and that's Brandon just brought up a good point. You don't have to have that $500,000 if you've already got permanent improvement that could cover the anticipated costs.
We had a question from YouTube channel. It indicated or asked, when will this survey go to the community for how to spend locally funded dollars? we plan on first thing tomorrow morning. Obviously, we're recording this session live. We will have a link to the recording for those folks that could not join to watch, that could re-watch, or if you watch this evening and you want additional clarification or want to hear something again, we'll have a copy of that link on our website. We will also have a copy of the survey with the website as well. And so you can re-watch or watch for the first time the presentation and then take the survey tomorrow as well.
Go to 57.
I think one of our facility committee members, Mr. Runkle, had a question.
Quick question for you on the storm shelter allowances that were being given by the state. Is it possible to look at something like a dome structure that would be maybe a multi-purpose as a gym?
That's a good question.
The storm shelter is part of the school. It is not a separate facility. So it is not something that you're leaving the school to go to. Basically, that allowance is to, call it, harden the space to meet it, basically meet FEMA standards. It is a new requirement in the building code, something that has occurred in the last update of the building code. It's actually been put on hold for the last 2 years because of the amount of cost that is associated with that, and with so many schools being state funded, that was a new requirement that was not necessarily anticipated. So the state has put that on hold for the last couple of years, but it goes into effect this September. So it would end up being a requirement for us, but it is to bring the building, a portion of the building, to FEMA standards for a storm shelter. It is not a separate facility.
So I have a question. What's the drop dead date to submit the master plan to the LCC and still have it approved in what I think you said was July?
If the commission meeting is going to be held in July, then we really need to have a board resolution passed at the May board meeting. We still haven't gotten confirmation from OFCC and from Valerie if there will be a July commission meeting, but assuming that there is a July commission meeting, it's probably going to be about the middle of May.
If the meeting is moved, would it still be good for us to have it in May?
I don't disagree with that, Danny, but you're talking about 3 weeks away from today to make a huge decision.
I know.
We can have a special meeting.
And where's the discussion time?
There would have to be a special meeting, if we want to, try to beat that May board meeting, or have the decision made after the May board meeting. There'd be a special after that.
Yeah, we'd probably have to call a special meeting, Julie. There's just not enough time right now.
To do it by the May board meeting.
Oh, we've got another question regarding the roof.
I'm sorry, Lori, can you clarify that? You mean to do it by the date? Do you think we can do it by the May board meeting?
I think to give us time and not be rushed, we should just do a special meeting later.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think it's really tight.
Yeah, if we could do it before Memorial Day, I mean, I'd say, you could probably push it to the end of May, and have give the OFCC enough time to, do what they need to do in order to get the resolutions and the documentation ready for the commission meeting in July.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, we've got a question also. What is the cost of the roof? Is the $750,000 upgrade a 10% or 40% addition? The $750,000 basically includes the additional structure that would be required for a sloped roof. you know, the baseline roof is a low sloped roof on bar joists and metal deck. So the $750,000 takes into account the additional structure and then of course the cost of the metal roof itself. So I couldn't give you an exact percentage upgrade at the time. My guess is it's probably in the range of 30%, I think.
It's probably $8 to $10 a square foot additional.
Yeah, $8 to $10 a square foot additional. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'd like to thank everybody for attending tonight. As Justin mentioned, the survey will be on the website tomorrow, and our next community forum will be May 18th. So we encourage you, please pass the word around about the survey. Please consider the options, and thank you very much.
I reiterate, Mike, thank you for your time this evening. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to tune in. If not, hopefully you're able to click on the link and watch this in a upcoming date. And please submit the survey, because your feedback is valued, and we want to make sure that we design a master facilities project that, you know, obviously stays within our budget, but also is based upon the needs of the community. So thank you for your time this evening, and have a good night.
Thank you, Mike and Mark and Ferks and Mr. Hattery for running everything. And confirming we'll have this online. The presentation will be on the school website, and the ability to download the survey will be there as well. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, excellent. So we ask the community to direct all your friends and family that live here and their kids go to school here to go to our website and download this presentation, or at least view it, and then fill out the survey. We need everyone's input to help us make the right decisions for the future of our schools. So, and I know that every one of the board members feels that way. It's just that we all can't stand up and talk at the same time now that we're on video conference. So do we have any other business to attend? So we would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Was that Lida for the motion?
Yes.
And Lori for the second? Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All right. Brandon, could you call a roll, please?
Ms. Mansfield,
Yes.
Ms. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Ms. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned at 8:40.